Good morning. Happy Father's Day. I read this morning that on Father's Day, there's one thing that all fathers are seeking in common, and that is forgiveness. Not so much from their children as from their wives for forgetting Mother's Day. I don't know if that's true or not. In all seriousness, I think it is appropriate that we have days like this, days like Father's Day and Mother's Day. There is a strong emphasis in the Bible on the fatherhood of God and the topic of fatherhood in the family and even in the church. It's a topic this special day that causes us to think upon that and to reflect upon that. And we can be grateful for things that have happened from our fathers or how we've seen God work in our families as fathers. Time to remember that, to celebrate what God has done. Perhaps it is a time to be forgiven and seek forgiveness. That wasn't just a joke. Sometimes that's necessary, isn't it? Sometimes we hold on to things from our past and the distant past that we just need to let go and forgive people that maybe didn't do as well by us as they could have or should have, and move forward with new commitment. Just whatever is appropriate, whether it's confessing, celebrating, recommitting, all those things are good to do on these special holidays. And I like that we can reinforce the truth of the Bible on topics that we practice. So, I like Father's Day. Second, let me do say that kudos to those who are filling the role of father in families where fathers are not present. I am aware that days like this sometimes can be awkward for certain families and people. I do give blessings on those who are filling the role of fathers in such situations. They do these extra efforts, these compensating efforts as single mothers, or grandparents, or aunts and uncles, family members, foster families. All that is also very, very important, and I think is valuable in our world that is often so broken. And I know it's a blessing to the Lord when we do that, because we read He has a heart and a special love and concern for fathers. Also taught to us in Scripture. So anyway, happy Father's Day. I'm glad to have a Father's Day theme here this morning. And as we're thinking of this topic, I don't know why, but the Lord put on my heart and my mind to go to the figure in the Old Testament of Job. And when you think of Job, I don't know if you think of father or not, but I think you'll see how it works. The Lord took me to that book. It's not everybody's book. We think of all the questions that are raised about the problems of evil and why righteous people suffer and how God allows it and why. And it just doesn't seem fair. Our sense of fairness and justice gets offended as you read this book. But it's actually a very deep book and a good book. And if you've never really pondered the lessons of the book of Job, I would encourage you to turn to that and read it. It's actually special in my own life. I've made it an object of study. And if I could recommend a book for you to guide you in that, there is a book out there called The Gospel According to Job by a man of the name Mike Mason. It would be a good place for you to start if you've never studied this book. It would help you through it in a good way. But Job is called a blameless and upright man in Scripture, and we know he was a father. And so I'm going to take that as our theme here today. Now, when you do think of Job, I'm going to assume some of us know the story as brought out, at least. When we do think of Job, we almost always go to that topic of suffering. His losses, the shaming that he received at the hands of his friends. But Job had a life before all those trials began. And that's what we're going to look at today. He had a life before his trials began. His book provides us enough background information through various passages as he looks back in certain chapters and remembers what his life was like before he put together a picture of what Job's life was like from these flashback passages that we have in the Scripture. They give us this picture before Satan began to afflict him, before his friends, so-called friends, began to afflict him also. To use Job's own words in chapter 29, he says that he once enjoyed days when God watched over him, when he was in his prime, and God's friendship blessed his house. So don't think of Job those days that suffering picture. He had days of great blessing too, of course, at the end of it, we are restored to him. We're going to draw our information this morning from two passages primarily. From the first chapter, the first 8 verses of chapter 1, and from chapter 29, we'll look at 11 verses there, beginning at verse 7. The first chapter talks about Job's private devotion to the Lord, or his own personal commitment to the Lord as a father and a family man. And then the second passage talks more about his role in society, his public righteousness, his public devotion to the Lord. And at the end, we'll make a few passing references to a few other passages to just kind of round out the picture. That's where we're going to go today, okay? So, let's begin by reading Job, chapter 1, the first 8 verses. Job chapter 1, verses 1 through 8, which will be projected for you over on the screen as we read along. It says, in the land of Uz. I don't know how you pronounce that, but he pronounced Uz. Okay? Uz, it almost thinks of Oz, and that's too bad because it's not a fictitious story, it's a really is. In the land of Uz, which is a real place, there lived a man whose name was Job. This man was blameless and upright. He feared God and shunned evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters. And he owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 donkeys, and he had a large number of servants. He was the greatest man of all the people of the East. His sons used to take turns holding feasts in their homes, and they would invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. When the period of feasting had run its course, Job would send and have them purified. Early in the morning, he would sacrifice a burnt offering for each of them, thinking, perhaps my children will sin and they encourage God in their hearts. This was Job's regular custom. One day, the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. The Lord said to Satan, Where have you come from? Satan answered the Lord, from roaming through the earth and going back and forth in it. Then the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil. Now let's pray. Lord, as we turn our attention to your word, I just ask you to illumine our hearts and minds. Lord, I ask you to teach us today by your Spirit as we open ourselves to you. Give us ears to really hear. Give each of us a lesson for us to hold on to today. Help us to learn things. Help us to be challenged to believe things and to behave in new and better ways. Lord, I just ask you to use this message for your glory. Speak through this message, I ask in Jesus' name. These verses inform us that Job was a powerful and famous individual. We're told he was the greatest man in the East. We're told he dwelt in the land of Uz. Where is Uz, you might ask? Well, it was probably a territory today that is identified either as the southern part of the nation of Jordan or the northern part of Saudi Arabia. In the Bible, it's located as either east or south of what was known as Edom in the Scriptures. And that's where that would be located today. We don't know where in that large region it would be, but it was that part of the world. All right, so we read that he was a resident of Uz. He was a family man. We know he was a father in this passage. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters. And the 7 sons already had their own homes, so by the time the story's coming along, they were already adults and they had their own households. So he was a family man as a father. Somebody wants to find a father as a man who now carries photographs where he used to carry money. I don't know if that describes you or not, but it didn't describe Job. We read about Job, even though he was a father and had all these children to take care of, was still a very wealthy man. He had lots of riches. He singled out as a rich man. And God said he was the best on earth. When Satan came before the throne, he says, if you consider him, there's nobody like him on all the earth. And that's remarkable because we read from Jesus, it's hard for a rich man to enter the kingdom. Right? And I don't believe God is able to entrust too many people who are his children with riches. Somehow they make us proud or independent or spoil us in some way. But it didn't do that way with Job. Job was a rich man, still feared the Lord. You know, Paul said that not many wise, mighty, or noble, or rich are called by the Lord. Here we have this guy who's deeply committed to the Lord, even though he's a very wealthy didn't make him proud or independent. So I want us to consider now the ways in which Job's private or personal devotion is described here in these verses. Just give a little bit of attention to what we read here. The first thing it says is he was blameless. Job was blameless. The Hebrew word there is tam. It means complete. It means fully formed and mature. Not lacking anything. It has integrity. The English words wholesome really capture the idea very well with the W-H-O-L-E idea to it. He's a wholesome person, full of integrity, we might say. You have to put that into smooth English. So that is how he is described there. Nothing lacking. Just a mature, well-grounded, complete man of God is the way the description starts out. And he's described as upright. In our English world, we think of somebody upright as not fallen. Right? It's the opposite of being a fallen person. This term in Hebrew gets yashar, which means straight. It's really the opposite of being crooked. He was straight-faced. Right? He was straight. He didn't deviate. He didn't have crooked things going on in his world. This means that he was very consistent, reliable, and unwavering, and straight-faced in his devotion toward the Lord. We are told that he feared God. Now, this is a very important characteristic to have, is the fear of God. Huge theme in all the Bible. We don't have time to get into all of it today. But when the fear of God characterizes our lives, and when we're practicing the fear of the Lord, God opens the door to many other forms of grace to come in. It's the beginning of a lot of things in Scripture. You may even think of one of the Proverbs that talks about it's the beginning of wisdom. Right? The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, for example. But this fear of God, I don't want you to think it's terror or being scared as much as it's a standing in a position of awe before God, of reverence for Him, that leads us to relate to Him in a way that we're very careful, in a way that we're diligent, and we have conscientious behavior in His presence. That's what it means to fear the Lord. As I mentioned, it's associated with many other gifts, that when we fear the Lord, God feels free to bless us. Salvation is linked to the fear of the Lord. Long life is linked to the fear of the Lord. Knowledge, wisdom, and understanding are all linked to the fear of the Lord. Purity, honor, wealth, even hope are all linked to the fear of the Lord. When we fear the Lord, He gives us these things in abundance. As more and more of His grace is poured out upon those that fear Him. So like faith, it's just one of those essential and elemental requirements for finding favor with God and experiencing the blessed life He wants to give us. So Job is described as one who feared the Lord. He respected Him. He lived in awe. He was careful in his walk. He was conscientious in his thinking as he lived his life before God. We are told that he shunned evil. The expression, again, in the original is he turned aside from evil. He shunned it. He turned away from evil. We read in the Scriptures that one of the things the Lord hates are feet that are quick to run toward evil. Right? That's how we're often inclined to be, to very quickly give in and get into temptation or go to the wrong. The Lord does not like feet that are quickly running toward evil. We're told Job turned aside from evil. He shunned that. He didn't make place for evil in his life. Another thing we see in these verses that we read, that Job functioned as a priest for his family. I'd like to think on that for a little bit. Fathers, do you think of yourselves as priests? You know, in certain church traditions, you think of ministers are called fathers or priests, and we don't do that so much in the Protestant tradition, do we? Although we do champion the doctrine of the priesthood of all believers. We can all go directly to God, and we represent God in the world, and that's good. But I'm just wondering how often you think of yourself, Father, as a priest. Job was a priest for his family, and I want to submit to you that that's one of the things we're doing for our families as fathers. We represent God to our families first and foremost, and then of course in the church and then out to the world. This is a responsibility we have, is to be priests on behalf of our children and our wives. Our authority is there where we've been given headship, and that's what we're supposed to do. We're to behave as priests for our family. And we see here Job was a man who was concerned about the spiritual welfare of his children. Even once they were adults, he never let go of that, to have this concern for their spiritual condition. Now, very nearly preached today on we are told only in one passage in the Gospel of Luke anything about Jesus' life between his birth and the time he began his public ministry. There's an incident about when he was age 12 when he went to the temple. And the parents lost track of him and had to go back to Jerusalem and find him. And it says at the end of that story, Jesus subjected himself to his parents. And he went with them at home. And then he grew in wisdom and in stature, in favor with God, and in favor of men. It's just a nice little rounded picture of how we're supposed to think of our children's lives. We take care of their intellectual development. Like Jesus grew in wisdom, our children should grow in wisdom. That's knowledge and understanding of how to apply in life too. And he grew in stature. That's physical development. He grew up to be a strong guy, a healthy guy. And so we look after our children that way too. And then in favor with God and men. We try to help our children have social development and how to behave with other people, get along with them. Then there's that spiritual thing where they grow up in favor with God as well. And far too often as we think of how we raise our children, I think we very easily go to their education, we very easily go to their physical health, and we very easily go to their social lives. But are we giving attention to their spiritual development with the same kind of seriousness? I don't know. That's just an extra I bring into this here. But priests of the family need to be thinking about that. As priests, we need to be thinking of the spiritual welfare of our families and of our children. So he's described here as doing that. It's interesting, it's linked with these parties that his children would have. I don't know how your translation reads it. I think the one we had that we just read, it just talked about his sons used to take turns holding feasts in their homes. They would invite their sisters to come and eat and drink. The original language just says at the house of each son on his day, they did this. That's all it says. Nobody quite knows what to say. I think one translation speaks of his birthdays. I don't know what your translation reads, but literally, it just says at the house of each son on his day. Some have surmised that there were 7 sons for 7 days a week, and so each son just held dinner for the whole big family. The big meal of each day was the different son's own. And they gathered together to begin through the cycle of the week. And once the rotation was complete, the Jehovah would then make offerings on behalf of his children. So we see that he prayed for his children. That was part of his devotion. We see that he mediated for his children. He offered sacrifices for them. He involved them in purification rites. And we see that he wasn't interested only in these external kinds of things, but he was concerned about the internal righteousness. He wondered what was going on in their hearts. He was concerned about a heart righteousness, not just a technical kind of a righteousness by just offering sacrifices. So what are the equivalents for that today for us? I guess is what I want us to think of as fathers. Are we looking at the spiritual welfare of our families? Are we praying for them daily? Are we bringing them before the Lord as we mediate for them, we intercede for them? Are we talking to them when we see that they sin and they err, and they challenge them when we need to, reprove when we need to, encourage them, of course, along the way and right things to do? Do we talk to them about their hearts and their motivations and values that lie behind their actions? All that is part of being a priest for your family. And so Job did this. Now, if we're told that he offered these sacrifices, I think that's a recognition that blood is required for atonement. So it portrays and foreshadows, as all the sacrifices do, the work of Jesus for us on the cross. So he recognized that. But the sacrifice that's mentioned in particular is he offered burnt offerings. I don't know if you've ever thought about the meaning of the various offerings in Scripture, but the burnt offering is a distinct kind of offering. And the distinctive feature of that offering is that it's wholly consumed on the altar for God. It's not one of those offerings where you give part of the animal to God and you're free to eat the other part and make a party or something like that. It's not one of those kinds of offerings. It's the one that is laid on the altar and is just completely consumed in the fire and taken up to God. And you're not allowed to touch any of it. And the victim, the sacrificial victim, is burned in its entirety. And when the Greek translation of the Old Testament, the Septuagint, speaks of the burnt offering, it calls it the Holocaust offering. That's maybe a word that helps us think about when we think of the term Holocaust. Utter destruction is kind of the idea. It's consumed completely on the altar. So what does that signify when a person lets a sacrificial victim represent him, and his sacrifice is placed on the altar and is wholly consumed? It speaks of a total commitment, an absolute devotion. It's a giving of everything. All that I am, all that I have is what is signified by that. So it's a recognition that God has lordship over all of life. That is the point of the burnt offering. So Job was this kind of guy. He offered himself completely in burnt offerings unto the Lord. He says, Lord, all that I have is yours. All that I am is yours. My family is yours. Everything that falls under my authority, my purview, my responsibility, it is yours. And that's the kind of priest God wants, representing him and blessing our families. So there's a lot of good stuff in these verses, even though we often just read over them rather casually. Job is an inspiring example of a deep commitment of a godly man at this private, personal level. So I'm very impressed with this character, reading just those verses. But chapter 29, we're going to switch to that now. In chapter 29, we read some verses there that describe Job's devotion was not just private. Job's devotion was also public. It was an open thing out into the society and the world in which he lived in. And so I want to read those too. So we're going to begin in verse 7 of chapter 29. This is a section, actually, chapters 29 through 31 is a flashback section of the book when Job is suffering his losses and he thinks back to where his life used to be. He reflects on that and describes what his life was like. So I'm just choosing just a section back out of chapter 29. Beginning of verse 7, it says, back in those days when God favored him more, at least that's how it felt. He says, when I went to the gate of the city and I took my seat in the public square, the young men saw me and stepped aside. Old men rose to their feet. The chief men refrained from speaking and covered their mouths with their hands. The voices of the nobles were hushed, and their tongues stuck to the roof of their mouths. Whoever heard me spoke well of me, and those who saw me commended me, because I rescued the poor who cried for help, and the fatherless who had no one to assist them. The man who was dying blessed me. I made the widow's heart sing. I put on righteousness as my clothing. Justice was my robe and my turban. I was eyes to the blind and feet to the lame. I was a father to the needy. I took up the cause of the stranger. I broke the fangs of the wicked and snatched the victims from death. Wow. It's poetry. It's a very moving passage. I get choked up almost every time I think of Job's whole situation. But we learn several things from this passage as he looks back on his life, where he's sitting on the dung pile, as we're told, scratching his sores. He's thinking back to better days after months of suffering went by. All right? And it says here, first of all, that he sat at the gate of the city before. He was one of those that had honor at the gate of the city. In the ancient Near East, the city gate was the equivalent of the city council and the courthouse. That's where all the official business was done that affected the community. It's where the elders would gather together and make important decisions. They would pass judgment in cases where judgment needed to be rendered, justice needed to be rendered. And Job did not shirk that kind of responsibility. He didn't isolate himself from the world that he was in and step away from that. Rather, he was involved. He stepped out and was engaged in community life. And it appears to us from this reading that he approached it with great seriousness and with a zeal as a service unto the Lord. So we are told that he sat at the gate of the city. He was one of the leaders in his community. Secondly, we see that he was held in high esteem by others. He was a righteous man who feared God, so he had developed a very strong sense of right and wrong. God had given him wisdom, and it showed to other people. He was concerned about fairness, and he avoided corruption in his world, in his society, in his community. And so he was given honor and respect because he was that kind of a guy. Whether it was young people or old people that were looking to him, whether they were the very prominent ones, the wealthy people, the nobles of the town, everyone esteemed Job, so much so that when he would come into the room, they'd stand up. Or he began to talk, they hushed up to listen, because Job was speaking. So he's held in very high esteem. We know that because of that, people listened to him. He was a righteous man who feared God, so he possessed knowledge, wisdom, understanding. His word, his decisions met with wide approval. Next, we read that he used his position of influence to help all sorts of disadvantaged people. Did you pick up on that? The poor and the needy, the fatherless, the dying, the widows, the handicapped, the vagabonds and strangers. Job was a blessing to every one of them. He cared about them when they came into his purview, where he served as a leader in his community. He made sure God's blessing reigned in such circumstances, in such situations. And he was the one of those guys that took care of people that needed taken care of. We were told that righteousness adorned his character. He wore it like clothing. He was clothed in righteousness. He wore justice like a robe and a crown on his head. These were the hallmarks of his life as he served in the public sphere. And we see that Job not only did right things, but he also aggressively fought against those who did wrong things. Did you pick that up? When people were victimizing others, Job picked up their cause. Verse 17 says that he broke the fangs of the wicked. He was willing to take courageous stands for the right issues in his society, and even bust some chops if he had to. He's going to break their teeth. He's not going to let them devour others. He had this zeal for righteousness to happen in his society, not just in his family. Wow. That's quite a picture and quite a challenge, isn't it? When you think of that. Clearly, he was a blessing and a benefit to his community. It's an inspiring portrait of godly public service. And I think this is, again, one of the reasons God commended him. He says, consider my servant Job. There's no one like him. He doesn't care about just his own. He cares about all the others all around him, wherever he can extend grace. So I'm going to make a few other noteworthy observations from a few other passages and a few thoughts here as we bring this message to a close. But I just kind of want to point out that both God and Job, as he was going through all his trials, knew of his record, that he was upright and blameless. He was not guilty. He was not suffering because he sinned. He had done nothing wrong. He knew that, and God knew that. Job knew that God knew that, but didn't quite understand why God let this happen. And that's another issue. But they both knew he was innocent through this whole time, that others were accusing him. And he had 3 friends who came and sat 7 days with him in silence. And it would have been best if they had just stayed that way. But then they just had to speak. Right? It ended up being more like tormentors than comforters, as they debated with him and accused him of wrongdoing. His friends just couldn't get past the idea that he had to have done something wrong, and he would not be suffering this way. He has to be, he's being punished from God. He has done something secretly, and they were urging him all the time, you just got to repent, turn away from your sins, Job. This is why you're suffering. He didn't do nothing. He needed to repent. So they kept accusing him and trying to shame him into an admission of guilt and repentance. And they really become almost like prosecutors for Job. And you know, as we follow our own politics and have a lot of talk about special prosecutors, my mind goes to the fact that I think of our political world in America over the course of my life, how many special prosecutors have been appointed to look into presidents and prominent governors, for example, and names like Archibald Cox and Ken Starr and Edmund Fitzgerald and Robert Mueller and all those guys come to mind because a lot of our public servants and leaders have been investigated. And I just wonder, these guys became a bit like that. They became, we're going to prosecute you, Job. We're going to find out what's wrong with you. And I wonder what it would be like to be prosecuted in that way. To have a special investigator come after my life. I'd like you to think about that this morning. What if we had a special investigator appointed looking at you this morning? Fathers especially, to look into your characteristics, to look into your lifestyle, to look into your behavior. You know, they would begin questioning your parents, you'd begin questioning your children, your friends, your co-workers, your enemies. Maybe they'd panel a grand jury, who knows, to put people under oath and look for things, TV reporters, maybe to get stories and write things about you. How would you fare if somebody really came after you? Would you fare well under a certain circumstance like that? Would they be able to dig up any dirt that you would be embarrassed about, that you would be convicted of being guilty for? the funny thing I find about Job, the reason I just bring this out is because he felt like they were persecuting him in this way, even though he was innocent. He goes on record saying, I invite an investigation. I want to be investigated. I want you to inspect my record, and I challenge you to look at my life history and tell me whatever I've done wrong. And that's really, chapter 31 is all about that. So you go through that, set up with like a legal scene. And Job dared anyone to discover any wrongdoing, any kind of sin, private sins, social sins, word sins, deed sins. He puts them out there and says, please just look at my life and examine me. Who can accuse me of actually bringing evidence of anything that I have done wrong? And in fact, his accusers never could successfully convict him of having done anything wrong. As you go through all those chapters where this is going back and forth in the long book of Job, nobody can actually point to something that he did wrong. He stood the test. He invited this trial, if you will, even invoking heaven and earth to be witnesses in his case. I'd just like to read just a few of these things from chapter, it's probably not going to go on your screen, I don't think I gave a slide for it, but just listen to these words from chapter 31, verses 35 through 37. He says, oh, that I had someone to hear me. I cite now my defense, let the Almighty answer me even. Let my accuser put his indictment in writing. Surely I would wear it on my shoulder, I would put it on like a crown, I would give him an account of my every step. I would present it to him as to a ruler. And in chapter 13, verse 19, as he was answering his friends on one occasion, he says, can anyone bring charges against me? If so, I would be silent and die. And nobody could rise to the case to actually come up with something concrete in his life. A remarkable testimony when you think about it. So that's one of the things, is that even when his life was brought into intense inspection, Job was not found evil. That's the kind of life we need to be able to live openly before people, that even when they dig under the rocks and turn them over, and we didn't want private spirits, into our secret areas, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. That's the kind of man that Job was. That's what it meant to be wholesome and have integrity, to be upright and to be blameless. So that's what the Lord would have for us. It is possible. We see that it was possible. It happened in the life of a real man in this example of Job. Another noteworthy observation here as we close out, bring to your attention, is that in his adversity, Job never cursed the Lord. He blessed the Lord rather than cursed the Lord. I don't know about you, I don't suffer well. Some people are better under duress than others, and different kinds of suffering, I know. But I'm the type of guy that tends to vent. Job didn't do that. In all this adversity, Job passed the test. He was accused by Satan. He says, Lord, Satan said to the Lord, he said, Job doesn't worship you for nothing. Look at how you blessed his life. You kind of bought this devotion. You pay him off, so he serves you. That's the accusation. Let me take it away from him. He'll curse you. He'll curse you to your face. And it didn't happen throughout the whole book. Job never curses the Lord. In fact, listen to chapter 1, verse 20, how it happens when all his houses and his family are taken away from him. It says in verse 20 of chapter 1, when all this tragedy came upon him and his family perished. He says, at this, Job got up and tore his robes and shaved his head. Then he fell to the ground and worshipped. And he said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. And in chapter 2, when the second round of tragedy came and his own health then was affected, his wife even says to him, Job, are you still holding on to your integrity? Just curse God and die. He replied, you are talking like a fool, woman. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble? And in all this, Job did not sin in what he said. I cannot imagine that even in his worst adversity, Job never cursed God, but still blessed God and worshiped him. And I find that to be an amazing testimony to us as well. Even in adversity, he was a righteous man, and God enabled him to remain blameless and upright. Finally, I'm impressed by the In fact, and we've alluded to it several times, that Job was the sort of person God could brag about. I'm going to leave that with you as a question today, including question. Are you the kind of person God can brag about? And the Lord said, consider my servant Job. There's no one like him. Does he say that? He looks at me and says, "Have you considered David? There's nobody like him." Does he say that about you? Whatever your name is, can he brag about you? He knew Job was one that upheld his standards. He knew Job was one that would uphold his honor. Even if everything was taken away, he would worship him for nothing, just because he's God. He knew Job would pass a test like that. There was nobody like him. So he brags upon him. So fathers, especially, I ask the question, are you the sort of person God can boast about? God can brag about, that he can point to for others to follow? If so, my whole point here this morning is this: that if you can be that kind of a man that God can brag about, you will surely be the kind of person that your children will brag about, that they will esteem, that they'll be proud of, that this church can consider a credit to the body. That's the kind of person you will be. If you just aspire to be the sort of person God boasts of, so will everybody else. It's remarkable. I'm going to ask the musicians to kind of make their way forward and get ready to close. My closing challenges are: let's just commit personally to higher standards of devotion to God. You know, Job was just a man. By his Spirit, it is possible to be this kind of person. So let's commit to higher standards of devotion to God. First of all, in our hearts, and then in our homes, and then let that filter out into our world. Let's kindle fresh fire on God's altar and offer ourselves as living sacrifices in our worship. Let's be faithful priests to our families, models to others of righteous conduct. I say at home and also out in our society. And let's commit to making disciples like this. What is the goal of our disciple making? What are we going to pass on to our next generation? Well, let's be an example. Let's make sure that we're cultivating these characteristics in the next generation and our children. As we look after their education, as we look after their physical health, as we look after their social lives, we also give attention to their spiritual development. They truly have favor with God. They will be blessed for it. Future families will be blessed for it. Future church will be blessed for it. The future of society will be blessed for it. We need more fathers like Job. We're praying this. Let's go to the closing song.